And welcome in, everybody, to the Last Row Podcast, a fan's perspective on sports. It's Brian here inside the ARM Media Solutions Studio on this Wednesday, May the 27th, 2026. Hope you are well, hope you are happy, hope you are healthy, wherever it is you are joining us from here this evening. Big thanks to our friends over at I Know a Guy Remodeling, as well as Forever Finds Thrift, for their continued support of the show. Big thanks to our friends over at ARM Media Solutions for their continued support of the show as well. Greatly appreciate everybody that listens and that tunes in. If you are with us on our socials, we do appreciate you very much. Of course, you can follow us on X or Twitter, whichever you prefer to call it these days. You can follow us there at Last Row Podcast. If you are on TikTok, you can follow us each and every night on TikTok and TikTok Live at last.row.podcast. Make sure you check us out on our YouTube channel. You can find us there as well. We stream live every night at Last Row Podcast. Join us there as well. Make sure you check out our website too, www.lastrowpodcast.com. That is where you can find links to all of our sponsors, including I Know a Guy Remodeling and Forever Finds Thrift. All right, let's get into it, shall we? Because we've got a little lull here now in the realm of the NBA playoffs. The Knicks are waiting to see exactly who they will play. And the Knicks are in the finals. We're waiting to see exactly what's going to happen there. Ultimately, I think it's very interesting to see what the outcome will be of that series. I think last night we saw the Oklahoma City Thunder really step up, really play well. The more I thought about it, I really have to give credit where credit's due to Isaiah Hartenstein for the way that he played last night and for how he continues to play in this series. He has taken his opportunities. He has absolutely made it pivotal and allowed his game and the game to come to him. And I think that's important. I think that overall you've got to look at the elements of with which the Thunder are playing with here. I mean, they're playing the right style of basketball. And I think that overall, this team is working on identifying the best ways to get Victor Wembanyama out of the game. And what I mean by out of the game, not physically out of the game, but maybe mentally. And I think that by putting Isaiah Hartenstein on him, that allows them to do so. And that allows them to get the opportunity to attack the paint. And then that allows Isaiah Hartenstein to get his game going. On top of playing really good defense against Victor Wembanyama. And I wonder what Wemby has to do in order to get going. I don't know if it's another talk from Greg Popovich. I don't know if it's having their backs against the wall like they do now. I think this series is going 7. I truly, truly do. I don't believe that overall you're going to have I don't believe that overall you're going to have a realistically, I don't believe you're going to have anything change with how the Oklahoma City Thunder played, especially how they played last night. Last night, I think, was the most complete we've seen that team. And that's scary. That's very, very scary. And I think that overall, you've got a really good opportunity here for the Oklahoma City Thunder to get out in front of this. And I think that overall, you're going to see the Thunder really put pressure on Wemby and put pressure on the San Antonio Spurs, to which the Spurs really haven't had that much pressure put on them yet this postseason. I mean, and with their backs against the wall right now, I wonder what exactly will come of this. I have to think here in terms of, finality, because they're on the brink of elimination now. I have to look at this and say, okay, what has Oklahoma City done really, really well? And that's take out Wembanyama. You can let Castle and Vassell and Champagnie and those guys beat you. Okay, fine. You want to do that? That's fine. You can beat us. That's fine. However, we're going to let you beat us, but we're not going to let Victor Wembanyama. And in the games where Oklahoma City has been dominant, that's exactly what's happened. And you have you really have a great game plan here. And look, Kendrick Perkins, excuse me, I almost went Sam Perkins. That's a callback to my age. Kendrick Perkins, formerly of the Oklahoma City Thunder, said that Wembanyama got punked in Game 5. And he really did. And I think the Spurs have to make adjustments and figure out how to get him in space and get him in space quickly. Whether that's through transition, whether that is getting him in the post, because I think the further away he plays from the basket, I think that Wemby tends to struggle. He's kind of checked out at that point of the game. So I'm just curious as to what everybody thinks. If you're in the TikTok chat, let us know what you think. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts and or Spotify, we do appreciate you. Remember to rate and subscribe. Like us. Leave us an email or a message via our website. You can do that. I have to give credit, though, to Mark Daigneault, the head coach of the Oklahoma City Thunder. He has brilliantly done it here over the last 2 years, and with SGA leading the charge, this team is absolutely they're absolutely doing everything right, especially when they win. Even when they lose, it's more self-inflicted, I feel like. And they just can't stop Victor Wembanyama when he is checked in. And what I mean by checked in is when he's dialed in. Wemby has absolutely, in the games that he has been dominant, and there have pretty much been two, Game 1 and Game 4. Those two games, Wembanyama has been the biggest difference maker in the NBA. And if Wemby played like that every game, I don't think that there's anybody that could stop him. The problem here is that I see Victor Wembanyama getting very tired at the end of games. And I don't know if that's because of the pressure that is being put on him by San Antonio, the pressure or the weight of what San Antonio is doing. I also wonder if the weight of how many minutes he's playing per night is weighing on him as well. And I have to question whether or not Victor Wembanyama is a little bit tired. Again, we're talking about a guy here that's fairly young. He's still getting his NBA legs, for lack of a better term. And Wemby is such a dynamic player, and we've talked about it here a number of times on the show, that Wembenyama could be an absolute nightmare for teams if he got some post moves. And if he gets some post moves, oh boy, that is that's dangerous. That means he's going to be even more difficult to stop. And I think that within that, I think Wembenyama is going to be somebody that can, without question, really get the Spurs in a really good position over the next few years. I mean, again, if he all of a sudden starts performing and producing at a higher level now than what he's doing, and that's hard to imagine. But if he does that, I think then that you look at what they can do to build around him. And my thought process is they've got a really good young core there in San Antonio. I mean, a really good young core. And within that, there's only a couple weak spots on that roster. And I think one of those areas is a good backup center. And I'm sorry, but Luke Kornet is not it. And they've got to figure out a way to get Wembenyama more touches throughout the game. But also they got to figure out how to get him more rest. Because by the fourth quarter, he is just absolutely gassed. And with him being gassed like that, it is incredibly difficult for him to get his legs under him, but then to fight for second chances and fight for rebounds and do everything that he can do. And for Wembenyama, he absolutely has to be dialed in from the jump. And I think when it comes to him not having enough in the tank, if you will, where his energy, is dwindling by the end of the game, to me, I feel like Wembenyama, that's only going to get better with time. And you look at last year, he didn't play in the playoffs a year ago because they didn't make the playoffs. This year, obviously, they have. But again, for Wemby, this is the most basketball that he's played in a season in a while. And he's not used to it. And you can tell that. You can see that his legs are not as good as they should be or ought to be. And Wembenyama is such a unique talent for the Spurs that they have to find ways to get him longer reps on the bench. Whether that's bringing in De'Aaron Fox and putting Fox at the 5, whether that's putting Kornet in for 5 minutes and saying, don't shoot the ball, just play good defense, be a rim protector, help facilitate on the offensive side. Whatever they've got to do, they got to do it, and they got to do it well. Because Wembenyama is just getting absolutely dog-tired by the end of the game. And again, you can't blame him. Wemby is doing everything that he possibly can. Wemby is doing everything that he possibly can and is getting himself in such good positions. But you have to give credit to the Thunder, because the Thunder are the ones that are, for lack of a better term, shutting him out. And last night was a game in which Oklahoma City did not let Wembenyama get going. And that was the first time in a very long time that I've seen Victor Wembanyama defeated, for lack of a better term. He just looked tired. He looked disengaged at times. There was a play in the fourth quarter, either late third or fourth quarter, where he was running on a fast break, and they had numbers, and the Spurs were out in front. And Wemby wasn't looking for the ball. And they threw the ball to him, and he glanced over his shoulder like that, and tried to catch it, and it went off of his hands and out of bounds. Monty, good evening. How are you? And I just feel like Wemby at certain points checks out of the game. And I think that'll get better with time and with age, obviously. But again, Wembenyama has to be dialed in every possession. And I'm just wondering if he is tired. I'm wondering if he is worn down. I'm wondering if he is just not as dialed in as he could be because he's so tired from A, having Isaiah Hartenstein all over him, B, having Chet Holmgren all over him, C, having, to be kind of the point man for the Spurs offense. I think you're going to see Castle get more aggressive in Game 6. I think Vassell has to be better. I think De'Aaron Fox, they need somebody like De'Aaron Fox to kind of take a little bit of a leadership role and say, all right, coach, you know what? I'm going to take over at the 5. Give Wemby a breather. Put Kornet at 4 or put somebody else, bring Harper in, put me at the 5, put, Vassell at the 4 or Castle at the 4, whatever. And just have Mitch Johnson get unique with the lineups. The other part of this too, and I'm wondering just a little bit here, is if maybe some of the head coaching rumors that are flying around Sean Sweeney, because he's coveted by a number of NBA teams, including the Chicago Bulls and the Orlando Magic. I have to wonder if that might be playing into a little bit of the Spurs' minds. I mean, Wemby's had him there for 2 years now. Wemby knows him. Is Wemby thinking maybe, this guy's checked out anyway? I mean, I'm just speculating here. Because, look, we've seen the Spurs be really, really good against the Thunder, and we've seen them be really, really bad. Last night was the first game where I thought, oh boy, this does not look good. Like, I questioned the heart of Wembanyama. And I think that overall, you have to, if you're the Thunder, you've got to pounce on this. This is your chance here. You've got them down. If you're able to, put your foot on the proverbial throat, then you're going to have a much better chance in the finals. If this thing goes 7, anything can happen. And that's why, even though they're the greatest 2 words in all of sports, Game 7, they are absolutely the most horrifying because anything can happen. Foul trouble for Wemby. Wemby gets hurt. I mean, look at the Indiana Pacers last year. I mean, it's just, it's not their anything can happen in Game 7. It's too unpredictable. Monty, you bring up a good point. It's not their time yet, too. They're very young. They're maturing. And look, I think that they're going to be good for a very long. Just like I think Oklahoma City's going to be good, I think San Antonio is going to be good for the next 5 years, especially with that roster and with that core group of guys with Castle and Vassell and Wemby. I mean, those 3 right there, that's a big 3 in and of itself. And you've got those guys that are going to be absolutely locked in tomorrow night. And for San Antonio, it's win or go home. For Oklahoma City, it's okay. Look, let's put these guys out. Let's take to use this, and I hate using this analogy, but I'm going to. Let's take Old Yeller out behind the shed, even though nobody's Old Yeller on that team. It's time to put them out of their misery. And so we'll see tomorrow night. I expect a really clean game from San Antonio. If San Antonio struggles tomorrow night in the turnover department, Oklahoma City wins it. I think that's been one of the one of the elements that hasn't been talked about enough in the series is how good Oklahoma City's defense has been at generating turnovers against San Antonio. I mean, San Antonio has had problems holding on to the ball. And I think that it makes it incredibly difficult for the Spurs when they're errant passes and Wemby's not paying attention, or you have guys that are just not as locked in as they should be. And if the turnover battle goes in favor of Oklahoma City, I think that's huge tomorrow night. And I think more than likely that means that Oklahoma City is going to win the game. But we'll have to see. I mean, there's a lot of time between now and tomorrow night. And I fully expect, I said this series was going 7. I still expect it. And I fully expect that the Spurs will win tomorrow night, and then we're going to get Game 7 on Saturday. And I think that with the Spurs having their backs against the wall tomorrow night, obviously if they don't win, the series is over. If San Antonio can force a Game 7, anything can happen, as we just said. And I think that overall, if that happens and San Antonio wins, San Antonio's has got as good of a shot against the Knicks, and the Knicks, vice versa, have as good a shot to win the title against San Antonio. I think they match up better against San Antonio. The Knicks do. I think the Knicks are obviously more of a veteran presence, but Jalen Brunson is such a dynamic player. You've got Karl Anthony Towns, who would be a load for Wemby to have to deal with, especially in the post. I think Karl Anthony Towns would do numbers on him in the post, both offensively and defensively. I think defensively, if Wemby were to get guarded by Towns, Towns would lean on him, and that would tire out Wembanyama. And I think that's been one of the most beneficial factors of putting Hartenstein on Wemby last night. Was you could see Wemby was gassed. And Wembanyama was, or is, such a unique talent that if you can find any type of an advantage. I mean, we talked about it in the beginning of the series. Wemby, when he catches the ball high in the post, and he literally catches it high, his elbows tend to flail a little bit. Look, I think that would be a really good opportunity to draw a cheap foul or two. And I know it's cheap, but you know what? Any advantage that you can get, you've got to take advantage of it. Any advantage that you can get, you have to be willing to do so. And if it means getting one of the most dominant players out of there, you have to do it. Monty brings up the fact that Robinson could lean on Wemby too. Absolutely. I think Josh Hart could have a very big impact against him too, because I think Josh Hart is fast enough and skilled enough to cause problems for Wemby down in the post or off the dribble. Because as we know, when Wemby gets moving downhill, I'll call it, to use an NFL term, that's a problem. And that's a problem for Wemby because he does not have very good control. He just doesn't. He doesn't have good control at all. And so for Victor Wembanyama, it's really about keeping your discipline, keeping your balance, but then also making sure that you have the stamina built up. And it might just be because he's so young too. That's the other part of this. Is that Wemby is so young, he may not have played this much basketball in the season. I mean, you look at the stats from a year ago, and the stats from a year ago are, pretty incredible when you think about it. I mean, Wemby last year, played, and I'm going to take a look here and see. I thought he had a. Let me see here. Did he play in all? Let's see. No, this is his third year in the league. No, last year he only played 46 games. This year he's played 64. His first season he played 71. Now, last year he averaged more minutes than this year. He's 22 years old, but he's shooting 48% for his career. But he has not been as, for lack of a better term, durable as I think San Antonio would expect. But again, he's only 22. He's never played this many games. I mean, in a 3-year span, he's played 181 games. That's a little over six, or in a 3-year span, that's 60 games per season he's averaging. He started all 71 in 23 and 24. In 24 and 25, he started all 46. This season, he started 55 games of the 64. He's averaging 25 points per game this regular season. So, and then in the postseason, this is his only trip in the postseason. He's averaging 32 minutes a night. He's averaging 23 points a game. So Wemby is absolutely, playing more than he's ever played. I mean, think about this right here. You combine the regular season this year at 64 and 15, that's 79 games. That's the most he's ever played in his career. Think about that for a minute. Johnny, good evening. That is more than likely why he is, I think, getting gassed at the end of these games. And yes, he's only 22, but the fact that he hasn't played a full season yet is a little bit frightening, because if he could remain healthy for a full 82 or even 80, I'm scared to see what he would be like. I'm scared to see how good he could be. And I'm wondering if maybe getting a little bit more meat on his bones, getting a little bit more thicker, for lack of a better term, in his upper body and even his lower body too. He's a string bean. I hate saying that, but he is. Getting some more muscle mass on him would be critical. And then, if you think about it, if you got him some post moves, i.e., and I've talked about it on the show before, like Hakeem Olajuwon, he would be absolutely devastating to try to guard. He would be absolutely incredibly difficult to guard. So we'll see. All right, we're going to take a quick timeout. We're going to hear from our friends over at I Know a Guy Remodeling. And then from there, we're going to come back. We're going to talk about other news of the day and more. All coming up here on the Last Row Podcast. All right, Last Row Nation, you know how every football team needs a solid offensive line. Well, your house needs one too. And if things are falling apart, I Know a Guy Remodeling is the team you call. Whether it's a bathroom remodel, kitchen upgrade, flooring, drywall, landscaping, or finally tackling that home project you've been putting off longer than the Chicago Bears have been looking for consistency at quarterback. Wow. Remind me to talk to the guy that wrote the copy on this. These guys are the ones to trust. The best part, you're not dealing with some giant company where you feel like just another number. You're working with people who care about getting it done right the first time. So, before your house starts looking like a team in full rebuild mode, call I Know a Guy Remodeling and tell them the Last Row Podcast sent you. Quality work, honest people, and they'll help get your home back into championship form. You can check out a link to their Facebook page on our website, www.lastrowpodcast.com, because everybody deserves to know a guy. And now you do. I Know a Guy Remodeling. And welcome back to the Last Row Podcast, a fan's perspective on sports. Monty, thank you for the chuckle. Yeah, we were gonna talk about that here now, because breaking news changes everything. We talk about it, right? And the breaking news is this: the Cubs won. The Cubs won, victorious over the Pirates 10-4. They snapped their 10-game losing streak thanks to Ian Happ having a 5 RBI night. He hit a tie-breaking 3-run home run and drove in 5 on Wednesday night while playing in his hometown as the Cubs ended their 10-game losing streak with a 10-4 victory over Pittsburgh. Wow, man, oh man. This is the Cubs' first win since May 15th. That's bad. That is bad. He had a 2-run single in the first to open the scoring and is reach-based in his last 40 games in Pittsburgh. He was one of 5 Cubs with 2 hits. Chicago is just the second team in Major League history to have 2 10-game winning streaks and a 10-game losing streak in the same season, along with the 2017 LA Dodgers. Neither starter factored in the victories tonight. Jameson Taillon and Pirates rookie Bubba Chandler both allowed 4 runs in 5 innings. Taillon, who has been a pretty steady hand for the Cubs, I would say, has lost his last 4 previous starts. And I will just say this much. He has been somebody that the Cubs could count on as like a 5th starter-ish. The problem is that he's had to perform like an ace, and he's not an ace. On top of that, you look at tomorrow night's starting pitching matchup for the Cubs, and it's Colin Ray, who's 4-3 with a 4.83 ERA, against Cy Young Award winner Paul Skeens, 6-4 with a 3.00 ERA in the finale of the 4-game series. Cubs are going to have to get to Skeens early. That's how you beat him. He's just like Justin Verlander in that regard. If you get to him early, you've got a shot. But Colin Ray has to be big tomorrow night. And Colin Ray, for the most part, has been decent for the Cubs in, once again, a spot where they weren't expecting him to be. Now, I will tell you this. I have seen, and I believe it was through Jon Heyman. I believe that's who it was through, and I'm going to verify this before I talk about it. But I did see a report earlier today that Jon Heyman said that he has heard that if the Tigers are going to trade Tarik Skubal, he believes the Cubs will be the team that gets him. And the Cubs would have to part with a lot, and they would have to have an agreement in place with Skubal to sign a long-term deal. My other concern with that, specifically with the Cubs, is they would become so left-handed dominant, pitching-wise, that it makes me concerned that they don't have... Now, again, you're getting back Justin Steele potentially over the next 2 months, hopefully. You lose Cade Horton for the year. You're getting Justin Steele back, as we just mentioned. Matthew Boyd is starting a rehab assignment on Saturday. So left-handed pitching, you've got Justin Steele, Matthew Boyd, Shota Imanaga. There's 3 out of your 5 rotational starters right there. You would then have Tarik Skubal, who, for lack of a better term, is an ace. He's your number 1 then at that point. But you have to get him signed to a long-term deal. Monty, great question. I thought I had seen that Skubal was coming back in the next few weeks, I had thought, but I'm going to verify that here right now. Yeah, John Heyman said via Bleacher Report, his top potential landing spot for Skubal if he's moved is the Cubs. And I'm looking here to see. Yeah, his looming return shows that it would be so he took the mound Tuesday for the first time since undergoing elbow surgery 3 weeks ago in a hopeful sign for Detroit. Let's see here. Let's see. Yeah, it must have been just in a throwing session, Monty. I believe that I had seen that he would be back within the next month or so. But the fact that they've pushed back, good evening, Reagan. The fact that they've pushed back pushed back the trade deadline, to August 3rd. If he can yeah, I think it's going to be after the All-Star break. I think they're going to be very cautious with him because if they can get a haul for him if he's healthy, oh boy. If I'm the Cubs, though, I'm going to tell you this right here and now. I'm not giving up Jackson Wiggins. You can take, you can take Dansby Swanson. You can take, I was going to say Wilson Contreras, but that's not their catcher. Anyway, you can take, anybody other than Nico Horner, Jackson Wiggins, Cade Horton, and Pete Crow Armstrong. Everybody else is fair game, as far as I'm concerned. Whether it's Alex Bregman, whether it's Matt Shaw, whether it's Justin Steele, Justin Wicks, Matthew Boyd, whomever. So, and Cody, yeah, I agree with you. He will be on the move. There's no question about it. John, and that's what we're talking about right now. John Heyman stated earlier on today on a Bleacher Report show that the Cubs are his top landing spot for Skubal. Thank you for the heart, by the way. Appreciate that. And if the Cubs are the top landing spot, Cubs would have to give up a ton. Cubs would absolutely have to give up a ton for that. And I just wonder what the asking price would be if it's going to be very, very steep. But if you can get a Cy Young Award winner in the prime of his career and get him to sign an extension, I think that would be ideal. Now, Monty asks a great question. Why not just get him in November? I don't think Detroit's gonna deal him, I think. And wherever he goes, I'm sure he's going to want a contract extension. So if you can do that, get him to to sign a contract extension when you trade for him, then you have more money lining up in November-ish. But the problem with that is if there's no agreement, which we'll talk about here in a second, If there's no, collective bargaining agreement, there's no season. And tomorrow is the first proposal that is going to be pitched from the owners to the representatives for the Players Association. And that will then mean that we'll see kind of what the salary cap that they're looking at and what they want. So we'll see. We'll see how tomorrow shapes up. But Skubal being available is a big catch. Now, I wonder if, and I'm just throwing it out here, if the Cubs are able to pull that off, could they include another team in the mix to help offset some of the return that the Tigers would want? For example, could the Cubs trade, Dansby Swanson to the Tigers in exchange for Tarik Skubal, and then get, let's say, and I'm just pulling a team out of my hat, the Anaheim Angels, the LA Angels of Anaheim, involved, and they trade Mike Trout to the Tigers as well. I mean, you don't really see 3-team trades in Major League Baseball, hardly ever. But I think that overall, something would have to help offset contracts and or whatever else the Cubs might need to get that deal done. Monty, I'm with you. I think get him in November if you can, because then you don't have to give up as much. My concern with that is that he won't be available in November. And then you're back to square one of where you have been every offseason, which is, oh yeah, we're going to be aggressive. We're going to be aggressive in the free agent market. And then you don't get the guys because, no offense, Craig Counsell is not Joe Madden. And he's not going to draw players there. Yeah, and that's the other part of it. If he's a Scott Boras guy, he's not going to sign before free agency. And that's true. Now, the other part of this is, will free agency even happen? Because if there's a lockout, there's nothing you can do. And then at that point, you're left to wonder. You're left wondering. So again, I feel that the Cubs have to get aggressive. And look, they need to get aggressive very, very quickly, because if not, they are going to find themselves out of a playoff spot very, very quickly. So I know that they signed Aaron Baumer, and I think that while it's not a huge signing, it's at least one that gets the Cubs a little bit active again. And I'm just not convinced that with him being a veteran reliever, that's not. The Cubs need starting pitching help at this point. They don't need relief help. They need starting pitching help. Look, one of your relievers is in the rotation right now because you don't have any bullpen help and you don't have any starters. Yet that was the one area that you said you were going to be aggressive in, was the pitching market, and you got nothing. You got Shota Imanaga back because he accepted your qualifying offer. I mean, that's not... I like Jed Hoyer a lot as a person. I think he's a great guy. I like Jed Hoyer as assistant general manager. I never have liked Jed Hoyer as general manager. I think that when Theo Epstein was president and was making calls, and Jed was GM, and forgive me, I misspoke there. I've never liked Jed Hoyer as a president. I've always liked him as a GM working under somebody else. When he and Theo Epstein were together no, I don't want David Stearns. Trust me on that one. But you know what? I'll say this about Stearns. Hang on, though. I'll say this about Stearns, Bonnie. At least he's over aggressive and commits an ungodly amount of money to players, and they take it because they're not going to get a better offer anywhere else. The Cubs aren't acting like a big market team. The Cubs are acting like a medium market team. I mean, my God, they're acting like the Kansas City Royals with their money. And I think a lot of that is because they do not have the television revenue that they were banking on with Marquee Sports Network. And that has been a major flop for the Ricketts family and for the Cubs. And that has not gone over well with fans at all. Be that as it may. The Cubs win tonight. The Mets win tonight. I don't know what else we can. I mean, maybe Monty, maybe we should play the lotto tonight. I don't know. I was already out and did my running. I don't want to go out now again. But the Cubs and Mets win on the same night. The White Sox won again. I will just give you this little update real quick. The Carolina Hurricanes put up 3 goals in 3 minutes against the Canadiens tonight in Montreal, and it has absolutely taken the wind out of the Bell Center in Montreal. And Carolina is 4 minutes and 22 seconds away from taking a 3-1 series lead. This series is pretty much done. As much as I hate saying that, because I love Martin St. Louis, I think he's done a phenomenal job. I just think Carolina's too good for Montreal. So there's that. I want to touch on something that we talked about it last night a little bit, and that is Josh Jacobs has gotten released from prison. They are still investigating. So they are still investigating. There's still more evidence to come out. So there's all of that, okay? I want to say this, and I want to be very careful in how we say it. But if more evidence comes out and it's bad against him, against Josh Jacobs, and I know Matt LaFleur addressed the media today and said that, the NFL is going to do their they're going to do their due diligence and their investigation, and we're going to respect that. We're going to let that play out. Well, if that happens, and when that happens, and it will, and if stuff comes out that Josh Jacobs is in trouble here, that's a big problem. Yeah, Monty, I mean, first place, Cleveland, Tampa Bay, A's, Seattle, and Milwaukee. Yeah, I get it. I mean, their payrolls are minimal. And they do a really good job I hate saying this, but they really do a good job at developing talent within their own organization. Whereas the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Cubs, they have to rely on buying talent because, let's face it here, their blue chip prospects don't do much. Yeah, Reagan, the Canes have been incredible all year on the road. And they're very much businesslike, and that's Rob Brindamore. That's their head coach. That is how they are absolutely they are incredible. Dodgers farm system is excellent. Yes, I agree with that, but they're spending a lot of money and talent getting all of these other players, which you can do, But again, I think that the Dodgers are kind of the exception to the rule, Monty. I mean, they draft well, they bring up their players well, but then they also spend on big free agents, and that is, that's kind of the Dodgers' MO. And yes, Montreal's been awful in the playoffs. I agree. So I'm hopeful that I'm just hopeful that they can beat Carolina the next game and force Game 6. Because, 2-1 right now. Now it'll be 3-1 after tonight. Their backs are against the wall in Game 6. So they've got to do something to get back in this series. They have to. Whether or not they will, I don't know. Okay, back to the NFL. It's been reported and floated by ESPN of a trade potentially in the NFL between the Chicago Bears and the Indianapolis Colts. And the idea is backups Tyson Bagent going to Indianapolis for backup quarterback Anthony Richardson. That's just a rumor and a trade that's been floated. I will tell you this right now. If I were starting a franchise, there is no way in God's green earth would I start it with Anthony Richardson. I am not going near that trade if I'm the Chicago Bears unless there's a first-round pick attached with it. Indianapolis would give up their first-round pick and Anthony Richardson for Tyson Bagent. It's the only way I would do it because you know what? I'm not keeping Anthony Richardson around. He can't read a defense. He can't throw the ball well. He's another Justin Fields. I'm sorry. It was a bad draft pick by Chris Ballard. They're trying to get out from under it, and it just doesn't make sense. And honestly, for the Bears, keep Tyson Bagent at this point. Unless Arizona is willing to give up a second-round draft pick in next year's draft for him, hang on to him. You have to hang on to him. He and Caleb have a great dynamic together in that quarterback room. I don't want to see the Bears linked to that. I don't want to, truthfully, I don't really want any team linked to Anthony Richardson because he's just not good. And again, Bears get very little cap relief. Bagent is not going to. Monty says not getting that. Bears get cap relief with that. Guys with minimal college starts rarely make it. Right. My point exactly. The cap hit that you would get for Tyson Bagent is minimal. Anthony Richardson is not worth Tyson Bagent. Anthony Richardson honestly probably wouldn't even make a practice squad. But the Colts drafted him high. There were rumors that Minnesota wanted him before Kyler Murray signed. And even after Kyler Murray signed, because there was thought that maybe they would trade J.J. McCarthy. I don't want Anthony Richardson at all. I don't. I think the Bears are fine with where they are. Now, I have seen Arizona state that they would be interested in trading Josh Sweat. I don't know how I feel about that. There might be talent there, Reagan, but you know what? Until he can read a defense, and I'm sorry, look, I'm going to go on a rant here for a moment or two. And we've talked about it during the college football season and even the NFL. The fact that we don't have college quarterbacks that can read defenses. The fact that we don't have college quarterbacks that understand, cover 4 versus cover 2 versus quarters. That's sad. We need to get back to that because it's hurting the game of football. While the athleticism is unmatched, and there's no question, the fact that these kids can't read defenses and they're one reads and go. Jaden Daniels is a prime example. Justin Fields, prime example. Monty, I am with you 110%. It's a great comp. Anthony Richardson is Trey Lance 2.0, and that's right. That's exactly right. I feel like these quarterbacks anymore can't tell a defense apart. And I look at somebody like Josh Allen that came from for lack of a better term, a no-name program, right? And look at how successful he's been because they teach you, they coach you on how to read the defense. If you're able to do that, you're going to be a better quarterback in the NFL. Because then the coaches don't have to worry about trying to teach you how to read defense. Where to go with the ball if they give you this coverage. You're going to have a leg up on everybody. And again, I believe that this part of college football has to get fixed. Murph, good evening. 7v7. Football is killing real football. Guys coaching that have no... I agree, Murph. Christian, we just talked about it. How the Hurricanes are just better. And how the Canes are just incredible on the road. And that's a credit to Rob Brindamore. And we talked about it about 5 minutes ago. It's just awesome to see Brindamore lead these guys as well as he has. It's just incredible. But again, this element of the NFL has got to get fixed. And the fact that you have players that come out of college not knowing what read to make, not knowing their hot receivers in a basic offense, in a pro-level scheme. I remember back, I remember it was back, let me look here. I want to say it was 03, but bear with me here. Let's see. When was he drafted? Let me see here. I'm looking back here. 2004. I was a year off. The fact that you had a college quarterback at a Mid-America Conference school in Ben Roethlisberger at Miami of Ohio, who at that point in time was running a pro-style offense. That's what you have to get back to. A lot of times, the Mid-America, the mid-majors, if you will, the MAC, Conference USA, those types of schools were running pro-style offenses versus the air raid, versus the spread. Oh, I do remember Jim Druckenmiller, of course. Yeah. The best NFL quarterback at reading a defense is Mendoza already. Yeah. Look, you're not wrong, Murph, in that regard in terms of from this draft class. Yeah. But I feel like college has gotten so far away from prepping these guys for what the NFL is. That's where I feel like you would benefit from having. Exactly, Monty. You're spot on there. Spot on. That's why Cliff Kingsbury was so incredibly good in Washington his first year under Dan Quinn because he was running a one-read system for Jaden Daniels. And that's exactly what has happened. And NFL colleges are running, or NFL football now teams are running college-style offenses. Except for the guys like Ben Johnson and Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan and Matt LaFleur. But they've got quarterbacks, for the most part, that can read defenses. College football has to get back to that. If we want to see the NFL progress into, or for the next 10 years, we have to see college get back to teaching quarterbacks how to read. It's like, I remember back in the early 90s, nobody in the NFL was taking a quarterback from Nebraska. Why? Because they ran the option. Nobody in the NFL was doing that. Nobody was running the option. Nobody cared to. Nobody needed to. Instead, you were getting guys from Alabama or Florida or Penn State or Michigan or, USC or UCLA, quarterbacks that were reading defenses, Stanford. Monty, there's the point right then and there that I have said from day one with Lamar Jackson. He runs a college offense. He's a one-read-and-go guy. And I'm sorry, that's just how he is. I'm not saying it diminishes his skill level, even though I think he's the most overrated quarterback in the NFL. He can't read a defense. It's the same issue that, Justin Fields had. And guys like that. Anthony Richardson. I think probably the last quarterback that came out that could read a defense truthfully, and I'm being serious with you, is probably Caleb Williams. Because Caleb was playing football at such a high level at such an early age that they taught you how to do that. Yeah, exactly right, Monty. Exactly right. In the playoffs, defensive coordinators turn up their schemes and they turn up the disguises, and it flusters and frustrates these young quarterbacks. And that's the problem. And that's the problem. And I think you see that with a lot of young guys. And it might be considered a hot take, but I'm sorry. Lamar Jackson, to me, falls into that category. I don't see, Tua Tagovailoa doing anything big. I don't see Kyler Murray doing anything big. Because they can't read defenses. They just can't. Joe Burrow can. Josh Allen can. I think Caleb Williams can because you see him go through the progressions. But, again, we have to get back to coaching this in the NFL. And if you don't, it's going to continue to hurt the NFL product. And I don't know if they want to think about turning the college football into the quote-unquote minor leagues, if you will, of the NFL. But I think it would benefit a lot of college programs and the college game as well to have NFL former offensive coordinators, i.e. like Bill O'Brien when he went down to or when he went to Penn State and then to Boston College. John Gruden, Bill Belichick's a defensive-minded guy, but he's brought in guys that can teach offensive schemes, to run a pro offensive scheme. I think that's what we need. I think that's what's needed in the NFL. So, again, I believe that needs to happen, but enough of my rant there. All right, as Christian stated, it was a 4-0 win by the Canadiens, by the Carolina, by the Hurricanes. They go up 3-1. The next game is Friday night, and I fully expect Carolina to end the series there. I fully expect it. One other story I wanted to talk about here tonight, and it came out earlier today with college football and the expansion of the playoff and the college football playoff. And Kirby Smart, head coach at Georgia, who's pretty dialed in, and he's, for the most part, in terms of what the college football game is going to. Kirby Smart has kind of taken on the role of the elder statesman, if you will, like Nick Saban did, and has suggested that the SEC could secede and if there's not a college football playoff agreement. He suggested, quote, that if an agreement can't be reached on expansion, spending in the NIL area and beyond, perhaps the SEC should try to go at it alone. I've said this, quote, to a long time to our president, Smart said on Tuesday. I've been a huge advocate that if we can't find rules that everybody plays by, then we should play by our own. I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid to break away, and to say that to our conference is strong enough to go out there and play. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. Smart's comments come after Georgia President Jer Moorhead on On3 last week said that if federal legislation isn't enacted to curb what he's called anarchy in the sport, he's prepared to be ready to vote on creating an SEC mechanism and an SEC rules if that's what we have to do. I will just tell you, and we've talked about this before on the show, the Board of Trustees in the NCAA has to get their arms wrapped around the NIL, and they have to get regulations in place to make things fair. Moorhead continued to tell The Athletic that he didn't know if it could come down to a vote in Destin, Florida, but he expects robust discussions and that he likes the idea, even though he acknowledged it couldn't happen for another 5 years or so. I mean, look, Kirby Smart and President Moorhead are all tied. They're in lockstep here together. And I feel like college football has to get regulated. And I think the one guy that could probably bring everybody together, despite any preconceived notions you might have about him, is Nick Saban. And I think that's why you see Pat McAfee all the time saying that the NCAA college football needs a commissioner, and it needs to be Nick Saban, because he wants what's best for the game. And he's not wrong. McAfee's not wrong in that regard. So if they could figure out a way to spread NIL evenly, like the basketball side has done, if they could get a governing unit to do so, and to regulate NIL and to regulate how they spend the money and to spread it out, I think that would be so much better. Monty brings up a great question. College football really only has 3 conferences. Could you see them merging, making their own rules? Absolutely. Realistically, I think you could see it with probably 4 conferences: SEC, Big 10, Big 12, ACC. Maybe Big East. But that's it. And I think at that point you would see probably Notre Dame join the Big 10 or the ACC, because they would want to be a part of it, because that's money for them. Other teams would want them a part of it because it's more money for them. I mean, you don't have a Pac-12 anymore. So, I mean, realistically, you've got the Big Ten, SEC, ACC, and Big 12, right? Is that what we said? Those four, for sure. You could probably add the Big East to it. I think, Monty, I think, look, if they were to join the Big Ten, they wouldn't have to because they have that contract with NBC. Thus, NBC has Big Ten Saturday night. That could just turn into Notre Dame Saturday night or Notre Dame Saturday. So they wouldn't necessarily have to give that up. But I think if it meant more money for Notre Dame, they absolutely would. If it meant more money for the Irish to go in a conference and have, ESPN or CBS or ABC or NBC in this regard, they would do it. And I think part of them joining a conference, I'm sure one of the caveats would be, hey, we're not going to give up our TV contract. And if you want us to join that, you're going to have to be okay with that. And I'm sure a number of the schools would be because of the fact that it's Notre Dame. Notre Dame is going to bring money and ratings anywhere they go. I mean, let's just call that out here. Because people love to see Notre Dame lose. People love to see the Fighting Irish, lose games. And that's a cold hard fact that, I obviously accept. Many at Notre Dame accept. My family that is entrenched at Notre Dame accepts. So again, it's all, it's like the Yankees. People love to see the Yankees lose. People love to see the Dodgers lose, right? It's the same element there. It's the same element. All right. That's going to put a bow on this edition of the Last Row Podcast. I want to thank you so much for joining us, whether you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you are with us currently on TikTok Live, stick around. We are going to have the overtime. From there, we will be back with you tomorrow evening because breaking news changes everything. And until then, I want to say thanks to our friends at Forever Finds and I Know a Guy Remodeling. And our hosts, ARM Media Solutions, thank you so much for your continued support of the show. If you've joined us on YouTube Live, thank you so much tonight. Greatly appreciate you. And once again, because breaking news changes everything, I'll see you back here in the last row.